Howdy. Can you nod? Can you tell me if you hear me? You hear me? All right, cool. All right. So I'm just going to start out by saying that the debate is that libertarians should be pro-life. I'm saying that on various different sides of the debate, there are a lot of different like principles, I guess, that go along with it. But generally speaking, libertarians are all about liberty. They basically believe that humans should be allowed to do anything so long as it doesn't infringe on another person's unalienable rights. I think that's something we can agree on. So from that point, I'm going to be arguing that abortion, in most circumstances, if not all, goes against that principle. So I'm going to pass the microphone so you can, I guess, do your. Oh, wait.
Not sure if I should have called this libertarian debate. I'm really more of an independent. I do think libertarians have some good values in regard to what you said, but as I had alluded to before, I think because of population problems, that just isn't possible in our lifetime. Which, I mean, if we didn't have abortion, we would if we had started abortion, if it had been legal in prior years, we'd have half the population in the United States we do today. And I really don't think you can stop abortion because it's population control. The other side of that would be in countries that have the opposite problem, where they're not populated enough. They actually restrict abortion so there's more people. But really, when you talk about liberty for everyone, I think what you're saying is pretty subjective, actually, because it's pretty hard to define when life begins. And I really want to make this a little bit different, but I am going to say that I do believe that a woman has rights as well. So her rights would actually kind of fall in there, and it's subjective. So I really don't want to draw a line, and I'm sure you will, but there's no objective way to determine it. So that's my argument.
Okay, so there's 2 points I want to address there. You said that you kind of had like an ends justifies the means argument right there. You said that population control is a major problem, and abortion would solve that. I mean, you could say a lot of things. You know what I mean? You can murder anybody just because you think it would justify. It would help you in the long run. You know what I mean? We justified having slaves because it was free labor. I mean, you can't just tell me that the end justifies the means, so we just look past inalienable rights. You know what I mean? To me, that's just the argument itself is flawed. You have to take it from a principled perspective. The second thing you said is that I do want to address where life begins, because if you don't address that, then you're effectively dehumanizing them. So I just want to make the argument very simple. When you have an abortion, are you killing something? I mean, are you preventing a life from going on? Are you taking? I mean, is something alive? Is it dying afterwards? I think these are very obvious answers to these questions. And then the other thing is that what is it exactly that is inside of the womb? I mean, it has to be a human. It's not a giraffe. It's not a rock. You know, DNA wise, if you look at this scientifically, okay, you have these different aspects. One, it is alive because it's able to be killed, and then two, it is human. So you're killing a human. It is homicide, right? And we can talk about from that perspective when homicide is justified, and I'm willing to even go to that, to those steps. But to sit here and tell me that abortion is a means of population control, I mean, let's just forsake anybody just because it would help us in the long run. You know what I mean? That argument has no bearing. And then to try to now to draw a line. I mean, you have to draw a line. You know, that's the point of principles. You know what I mean? If you don't have a rule, what is society based on? You know what I mean? So I'll pass it back.
Thank you. Well, again, that's kind of subjective, and I'm not going to answer a subjective question. I don't have a problem with a woman determining that. I think it's a false equivalency to compare that to slavery, where you're actively forcing somebody to do something against their will, especially when this is a question of choice. And the other thing is, I mean, do you believe in population control? That's my question for you.
Okay, I don't understand how you could possibly think it's subjective. I mean, we're using definite parameters. Okay, are you saying it's subjective that it's a human in there? I mean that seems like something that's easily definable. Is it subjective that that we're taking away rights from a woman? I mean, you have to think about this. I'm not talking about the rights of the woman here. The woman is fine. She's gonna live. There is no inalienable right being taken away. But we're talking about a human. All right. There's two people in this, and there is a precedent for this. Obviously, I mean, if you kill a pregnant woman, you can be charged with double homicide. There is a precedent for this. I don't understand how this could possibly be subjective. On the other side, population control. The thing is that people who generally have, I mean, who are the people who are having kids all the time? It's not people that are educated with wealth. It's not people who get to actually live freely, who get to experience choice. Often enough, it's people that are uneducated, people that are kept impoverished. You know what I mean? People who don't have good families. You know, often it's people on welfare. And these are all things that the libertarian movement opposes. So if you want to know the truth, I think that there are population control methods that can be used, and they actually coincide perfectly with the principles of the Libertarian Party. That's why this whole argument not only is a pro-life argument, but it's also why libertarians are pro-life, because it turns out that everything that I'm saying falls in line with the principles of libertarianism. I'll go ahead and pass.
Ron Paul might be pro-life, but the Party is not pro-life. They cite the same thing that I do, and the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court ruling. They cited the liberty of the woman, and that's the position of the LP. And in fact, that's why Ron Paul. I love Ron Paul. That's why he would call himself a conservative libertarian, and that's why he would say he ran as a Republican, and that he really is a Republican. He's the best libertarian ever was. He's the only one I've ever considered voting for. Yeah, I don't know if you really answered my question though, as far as population control goes, because I'm sure you believe that we should have an immigration policy as part of population control. So I don't think you can really deny that you believe in population control. And as far as these people having these kids, you don't know who they are. My father, he came from an Italian family with 8 kids, and they had more money. They had more money growing up than I'll ever have. So I don't buy that, and it's not my moral decision. Even if they were why would I care? That's not my moral decision. Who's doing it? And then the other thing is, who's going to enforce this? We spent $60 billion on the drug war. We spent 537 million, not billion, $537 million on Planned Parenthood, and only 3% of that funding went to abortion, and it was private money. It wasn't public money, it was private money. And the money that goes to Planned Parenthood, which is kind of outside of that, that's just disease control. That's population control on a lower scale. Because if I'm giving someone birth control, I'm preventing them from having kids. And once they have the kid, who's going to pay for that? You're saying you're a libertarian. You don't want to pay for it because that's your liberty and they're taking from you. Who's going to pay for these kids? So it's like I said, you are coming up with these arguments that are ideological, and you're not looking at the practical side. And again, Ron Paul might be against abortion, but the Libertarian Party is not. In fact, anti-libertarians will even call libertarians pro-abortion. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Okay, so the first thing you talked about was the Supreme Court decision. I don't care what the Supreme Court does. They get it wrong sometimes. Often enough, I mean, they're humans. Mistakes. They had Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. They said that was legal. That's it. They defined it as a tax. All right. Libertarians don't like taxes, so already taxation is theft. So automatically, that still doesn't justify it to me. But two, you cannot fine me for something that is apparently my right. The same administration that says that I have a right to healthcare and a right to insurance through healthcare, it's telling me that if I don't utilize it, even though it's my right, so it's my choice, if I don't utilize it, then they're going to fine me. So I could care less what the Supreme Court says. I think we're allowed to be independent minders and be critical thinkers, and I think we're allowed to put ourselves on a level where we can talk about this, and maybe we can come to a different, maybe even an amicable decision about this particular topic. I don't need the Supreme Court to give me consent on how I feel about this. So that's one. Two, population control. On the one hand, you suggest that population control is something that we need to deal with, right? Correct? Okay. On the other hand, you tell me that it's not your moral decision. You don't care. You just cited your father, I believe, right? Who's Italian and he has 8 kids, right? Well, apparently you don't care that he has 8 kids. But then you're spouting off about population control. So I don't understand where your principles are. I do care about population control from the perspective of a moral hazard. Okay, I don't really care if you do it. You know, it's the same thing as weed or alcohol. I want to educate people. I would tell them you probably shouldn't be an alcoholic. You probably shouldn't be smoking weed all day. You probably shouldn't have a bunch of kids if you can't take care of them properly. You know, you probably shouldn't have a bunch of kids if you can't make sure that they're not going to grow up to be criminals, which would infringe on other people's rights. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean I'm just going to go around killing people. All right? That's two. The third thing, if you give access to birth control, that's fine. But what I'm telling you is that abortion is not a means of stopping you from conceiving a child. It's literally killing someone. I mean, we can't. I mean, you say it's subjective, but I don't understand how it could possibly be subjective. There is someone in there. There is a precedent already defined that it's a human. I don't understand. I mean, if it's not a human, tell me what it's not, or tell me what it is. Because if it's not a human, then I don't understand what's going on here. Maybe then you'll have a point. But as far as I'm concerned, it is a human. So at that point, it's no longer. We're already past. We're already past getting someone pregnant. So, and maybe we need to redefine what birth control is. Maybe we need to redefine it as pregnancy control. Okay. Because abortion, I guess, under the definition of birth control, it is preventing a birth, but it is also killing someone. I'm just not for it. So,
first of all, I was talking about my grandfather, and he had 8 children during the baby. So that's kind of the opposite situation. As far as the Supreme Court deciding that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is a tax, that is a libertarian decision because it is a tax. That basically it was a smart decision, and it really wasn't the wrong decision to say it's a tax. It is. I don't like the idea of forcing someone to have health care either. It's actually a burden to me. It makes it harder for me to leave a job that it's kind of been hasn't been so great for me. And again, I think it's subjective, and I don't want to make I don't want to make that call because I believe it's up to a woman. And I'll use this example. We just had this heartbeat bill pass here in Ohio. And the thing is, it might take 7 weeks for a woman to know that she's pregnant. So that is a tough call, and it is subjective, and that's part of their body, and I can understand why they would feel it's important to them as a choice. That's not really my lead argument. I feel that it wouldn't be a good idea because I don't think you can enforce it. I think it would just make the situation worse. It would make the quality of the care worse. Also, I mean, I don't know how would you enforce that?
I do want to answer. Enforce what particularly? I just want to ask really quick. I'm gonna pass it back to you. Tell me, how would I enforce what, and then you can pass it back to me and I'll answer.
If abortion were illegal, how would you enforce it?
I think I would enforce it the same way that I would enforce any other law that is trying to stop people from preventing or harming or infringing on other people's human rights. I mean, that I call it as I see it. It's homicide, all right? And then you have to define what homicide is. I'll give you an example, okay? Because the common thing is that people talk about rape and when the mother's life is in danger, okay? When it comes to rape, okay, if I as a man was raped, I don't get to use that as an excuse to kill anybody, okay? If a woman's raped, she shouldn't use that as an excuse to kill anybody, including the fetus or the child or the baby that could be a result of that rape. I'm just on principle about that, okay? That's all there's to it. It's a shitty situation. A lot of times when people do wrong things, when they do things that are illegal, it has ramifications that are horrible, and they just compound, and it seems like there's no end in sight. But unfortunately, that, you know, two wrongs do not make a right. You have to stop it at some point. Okay, so that's how the rape goes. When it comes to if the mother's life is in danger, again, look at it from a homicidal point of view. Even if somebody is accidentally putting your life at risk, and I mean at risk, like if the baby is born, then the mom could die, or she even will die. Okay, if you have this precedent that you could be killed or severely harmed or whatever, and you're just protecting yourself, then I understand abortion. Because at that point, if we're following the parameters of homicide, it would fall under self-defense. Okay, that is the one time, because it's an amoral situation, you do have the right to defend yourself. Okay, you don't have the right to defend, I don't know, your just your livelihood or whatever, just because you went ahead and got pregnant, even if you were raped. You know what I mean? It's only when your inalienable rights are being taken away. It's only when somebody's infringing upon your actual rights. Okay, and you have a right to life, but your right to life isn't defined because you're pregnant. Okay, it's defined if your life is in danger. Okay, so that's where that's how I would judge all abortion cases. I would look at their parameters. I look at it as a homicide case, and then I would enforce it the same way I enforce every other law. Okay, through the judiciary branch. The other thing, yes, going back to what you said about Obamacare, about the Affordable Care Act, you said that it is a tax, and they were good in defining it. Okay, my point is not that it's a tax. Okay, if you want to get away with calling it a tax, fine, you can get away with calling it a tax, but you cannot tax a right. Okay, when was the last time I ever got taxed because I didn't use my right to bear arms or to free speech? You know what I mean? If my right is to healthcare, or my right is to have insurance, and I do not utilize that right, the government cannot then come in and tax me. That is the problem. No matter which way you look at it, the Affordable Care Act is messed up because it pretends that you have rights, and then it infringes on those rights. And then, but then you have to redefine it. Okay, fine then. The Affordable Care Act is not doing anything with rights. You don't have a right to insurance. You don't have a right to healthcare. You have a right to pursue it, but you don't have a right to them, particularly in the case that you have to have them. Well, if that's the case, why the hell are you making a law that mandates me to have it still? Whichever way you look at it, it's ass backwards. So that's why, again, I don't agree with the Supreme Court. And I'm looking at and I'm taking those principles and I'm looking at it case by case when it comes to abortion as well. I don't care what the Supreme Court has said. I look at it from a principled perspective and I understand what the problem is. I understand that abortion, unless it is defending the literal life of the mom, it's wrong because it's murder. Okay. So anyways, I'll pass it back.
So if someone rapes her sister and she decides to have an abortion, would she go?
Well, if that's what the law says, then yes, yeah.
So you think that all the parties would be guilty then?
I think that there's a way for her not to be guilty. It's to have the child and maybe give it up to adoption or maybe take care of it herself. But in that particular instance, if you have her having the abortion and her life is not endangered by the actual pregnancy or the birthing of the child, then yeah, it would be a guilty party. I mean, it's as clear cut as that. You can try to.
Who's going to pay for that child once they're adopted? And if it costs $56 billion to prohibit drugs last year, as compared to $53 million to have Planned Parenthood, and only 3% of that was used for abortion, how much is it going to cost?
How much is it going to cost to enforce a law? Well, I mean, if the government is smart, then which often enough it's not, then maybe more than it should. But I mean, you're telling me that it costs a certain amount of money to enforce drug laws. I mean, I'm against drug laws too. You know what I mean? Those don't infringe on anybody's rights. I'm talking about laws that do infringe on people's rights. See what I'm saying? I don't, maybe, I mean, shoot, if we take out drug laws and we end the drug war, maybe we could afford to have better incarceration. Maybe we could afford to actually put violent criminals behind bars because, hey, abortion would be considered a violent crime. I don't know.
Well, if I'm a medical marijuana user and the government says I can't have marijuana, my rights are definitely being infringed upon. So
I just said I oppose the drug war. I legalize it. I'm a libertarian. Why are you making this about drugs? We're talking about abortion. I don't understand it's a false equivalency. I don't even understand like where you're.
You said the drug war wasn't infringing upon anyone's rights, so that's why I brought that up.
No, I said you utilizing drugs. You being a pot smoker or a crack addict or an alcoholic or whatever it is that people are nowadays. That is not infringing on anybody's rights. Your choices that you make under the influence, sure, that might infringe on someone's rights. But your choice to actually use a substance is not taking anyone's rights. That's what
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. Well, I mean, that's really all I got, Eric. I just don't think there's a way to enforce that that's realistic, and I think it would cost a lot more to enforce on all ends. The cost of creating a federal agency, you want to expand the federal government. Obviously, you do care about what the Supreme Court says because you told me the reason you voted for Donald Trump was because of your feelings about abortion. So you have to pay somebody to enforce this law, and then you have to pay for I have to pay for the child. So I think it's just going to cost a lot more, and ultimately the biggest problem I'm facing in my lifetime is that there's too many people, which would be the same reason why Ron Paul would say that ideally you wouldn't have any immigration laws, you'd have open borders, but there's already too many people here, so we have to restrict who comes in. That's what the government should do. So it's basically the same
I believe he's talking about ideally if you had one culture throughout the world where you could have people coming into and out of your state without infringing on your human rights, then that's why we would have open borders. It really doesn't have anything to do with population. It has everything to do with whether or not people can come in and you trust them. Okay, libertarians believe in a state. Okay, we are very much, to us, the Constitution is our Bible. Okay, some people even someone like Ron Paul might even put the Constitution above the Bible. Okay, we believe in a state, we believe in a federal government, and we believe in powers that are limited. We limit it to defending our rights. And again, abortion is about defending the rights of the fetus. That is the point. You can talk all day about how the drug war is wrong. Yeah, obviously, I agree. So why don't we stop that and then use our money to defend rights? So there's that. I mean, I'm telling you, from a principled perspective, libertarians would be pro-life. I mean, there's no way around it. If you're a libertarian and you're not pro-life, you either A, haven't thought about it, or B, you're not as principled as a libertarian should be in order, to identify yourself as a libertarian. We're kind of running out of time, so or at least on my end, and I know you said that that's really all you got. So I'm going to pass it back to you. If you want to continue talking, I'd be glad to. Otherwise, my closing statement is, from a principled perspective, libertarians are pro-life. I'll give you time to maybe give a vote, and then you can end the debate if you want on the upper right-hand side of the screen. But I think this was productive. So I'll pass it.
Thanks, Eric. I still hope to talk to you about how libertarianism would relate to population control in another debate. And if you want to go over dispelling some of the myths, and because I think we're both kind of interested in that, so there's some common ground there. I'm going to say, this is my thing, because, I really didn't want to talk about abortion. So I kind of saved this. Well, I saved this for the end. The reason is I believe it's a dividing issue. I'm just assuming this about you, but I'm assuming you're more of a Republican, and in my experience, I've honestly been more of a Democrat. But we're using this word libertarian, so we obviously have some common values. It was hard to come up with something that we didn't agree on. But then all of a sudden you throw this thing out there, abortion, and we're divided. And I think it's an emotional debate, because you just kept telling me that no matter what, subjectively you believe, well, I'm saying it's subjective, but morally, and I'm sure you agree that it's moral, that you believe life begins at conception, and the other end of the debate will say, well, it's my choice and you're taking my choice away, and that's my right. So it's an emotional argument, and you will show up, as I assume, for any politician that would say they're against abortion, and the other person's going to show up for any politician that says that they're for abortion, and why every other issue is ignored. For example, in Ohio, this heartbeat bill just passed. I really didn't know until it came up in the news, because I wasn't following it. There were other issues that I followed that were a lot more important to me, and they're not in the news at all. The only thing that people are talking about is this heartbeat bill and how they feel about that. And so they're not really talking about the things that I care about, and they're not really making decisions based on the things that I care about. And the politicians don't even make the decision. The Supreme Court makes that decision. So really, it's just a dividing line that draws two parties, and it stops people from agreeing. And it's not something you can stop. And that's the reason that I make the parallel with the drug war, because it's a prohibition, and I don't think you can stop it. I think it would only hurt people, because they'll do it anyway. If I'm that person who, well, I want to say needs Planned Parenthood, but that could be many people. But I'm maybe like the rock bottom, like I'm maybe not me, but like it's like street prostitute. Like so, like there's a street prostitute that's addicted to drugs. What they obviously are addicted to. They obviously don't care about the choices they're making. So you telling them that that's illegal isn't going to stop them from having the abortion. It's only going to make that worse. And even Ron Paul, because I watched a lot of what he had to say in preparation for the debate. What he actually says is a little bit different than what you had to say. I think you're a little bit right of him, because he actually said that, well, it's a state issue, and I wouldn't punish a woman. I would punish the physician, and a state would do that. Whereas that's kind of why I asked about who's going to do this, and you seem to believe it would be okay for the federal government to do that. But to me, it's not as important to me as it is to you. For that reason, that's really my feeling about it. I have strong feelings about it. If you're for abortion, that's not going to get me to vote for you, obviously. And if you're against it, good, but that's still not going to get my vote. You're going to have to do a lot more than that. And I just expect a lot more too. I really don't like any kind of emotional debate. I consider myself an intellectual, so I'll try to debunk any emotional debate. So yeah, I'm glad we had this talk. I do believe it was productive, and hopefully we'll talk about population and the myths, and I will give you a chance to.
Okay. Number one, Donald Trump flip-flopped on the abortion issue about 1 million times during the race. He actually put a very long Facebook post, which he considered to be his official statement on abortion, where he was actually pro-choice versus pro-life, and then afterwards he flip-flopped after it again. So that wasn't even close to why I actually voted for him at all. It just happened. I mean, he's bad on a lot of things, but he just happens to be better than Hillary on virtually everything. So that's why I voted for Donald Trump. The second thing is that, yeah, this is an emotional response. I'm telling you what I believe. If you could prove to me that you're not killing a human being when you're having an abortion, I'd be fine. I'd be like, oh, shoot, all right, that's a done deal. But unfortunately, most people can't, because it is a child, it is a baby, it is a human, it is alive, and abortion causes it to be dead. So yeah, and the thing about the prostitute is, again, this is why we're talking about why this is not just a pro-life argument for me. This is why libertarians should be pro-life. The prostitute argument insinuates that she's in a position where she can't make a better decision. Well, maybe she would be in a position to make a better decision if we had libertarian values and we had a libertarian society, because she would be educated, she would have access to a freer market, she'd probably be in a principled household where she could make better choices. So yeah, so anyways, I'll pass it back to you, and then whenever you're ready to make your final statement, I'll go ahead and make mine, and then that'll be that.
Oh, that pretty much is my final statement. I think it's just kind of I don't want to say I'll just make people mad, but it's not really one that's important to me, because I think it's just a way to draw a line between in a two-party system, and it's not really productive, because the politician doesn't make that decision. The Supreme Court does. I didn't really like Hillary either, so I think we can agree on that. But of course, that would be why somebody would tell you, oh, you can't vote for Donald Trump or whatever, or Hillary has to win because of abortion, and like, what's that Supreme Court justice going to do? But yeah, that is my closing argument. So.
Okay. Well, I'll just let other people decide how this turned out. I think we had a good back and forth, and I guess we'll just let the voters or the audience decide, who managed to have a stronger argument. I appreciate it. I do look forward to the libertarian argument with the population control thing later. The reason I didn't accept that for this particular debate was because I didn't really understand the premise of it, and I still don't. But I mean, inside of the other one, hopefully, can just be like a freestanding debate. You know, maybe it doesn't have to be moderated. It can just be like a conversation because I really am interested in that perspective. But all right, that's my closing argument. I'll end the debate right now. Is that okay? Okay. All right. Well, hey, have a good evening, bro. Thank you.